Opinions that matter. News you can trust. This is Perth Live with Oliver Peterson.
13 after 5. Is this a win for employers or is this a win for unions? I think unions would argue that insecure work is going to be providing major problems for the hundreds of thousands of Australians employed as casuals right across the country. The High Court has rejected a casual back pay claim that has obviously motivated this big industrial relations fight. Employers, it is being reported here at WA Today, have scored a major win in the High Court after it effectively shut down what could have been a pathway for long-term casuals to claim that they were part-time or full-time workers with rights including paid leave. The federal government had estimated that if the case, which was cited as a major reason for its industrial relations reforms earlier this year, had gone the other way, it could have cost businesses as much as $40 billion nationally in back pay without law changes. Now, this is all about a case which is being described as the Rossato decision. The High Court has now rejected this casual back pay claim that could have cost, as I said, Australian businesses as much as $40 billion. Sam Shaler, the manager of the Herbert Cafe in Northcote in Melbourne, he was not opposed to casual staff eventually getting leave entitlements, but said small businesses had little ability to shoulder the costs because of the pandemic. On the line, Sally McManus, the Secretary of the ACTU. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ollie. Great to be here.
Nice to have your company today, Sally. What do you make of this result in the High Court today?
Well, I think it's a big problem for our country because the High Court's now confirmed what the federal government's also pushed for, and so have the labour hire companies, that employers basically can give you a letter of employment and call you a casual, take away all your leave entitlements, and you're a casual forever. That's a really big problem because if you're doing a permanent job, you should have permanent rights, like the basic things like sick leave and annual leave. And if now that's all wiped out, which it is because of this decision, it means that any employer can employ anyone in a permanent job and call them a casual, and you don't get those rights. So it says to us that we've got a serious problem with our law and it needs to change. If it's a permanent job, you should have permanent rights.
Okay.
No problem with proper casuals that aren't the jobs up and down and all over the place. That's fine, but not permanent jobs being called casual jobs with no rights.
All right, let's work through this. First and foremost, so Sally, casuals, generally speaking, paid a little bit more because they don't get sick leave. They don't get any of these extra leave entitlements that people who are part-time or full-time employed are included in their packages.
Yeah, so that was always the theory. So in awards, so the minimum conditions, you get paid 25% more, like a loading.
Yep.
It's meant to compensate for that.
Holiday pay, sick pay, and the like.
That's right. And over time, what's happened is people are actually paid a lot more than the awards. So what's happened is labour hire companies in the mining industry, and this is a really, clear example, the casual workers actually get paid less than the permanent workers because the permanent workers have negotiated over 20 years better than the absolute minimum. What the labour hire companies do is they come in and undercut that and put people on the minimum. So not only are you a casual, but in mining they're earning $30 a week less than what their permanent counterparts doing the same job. And surely that is not right.
How do you fix it, Sally?
Well, I think that we've just got to have a common sense definition that everyone follows, employers, employees, that if a job's ongoing, permanent and regular, you get ongoing, permanent, regular rights, sick leave and obviously annual leave. If you're a proper casual and it's up and down, and hospitality and retail, this is really common, and we would not contest that a lot of those jobs are casual jobs, and that's fine, and people might prefer that, and that's fine too, but not to have a situation where any job can be called casual. I think this idea of permanent casual is just wrong. The two words don't fit together.
All right. How quickly, though, can you ascertain whether somebody is a, as you say, ongoing, permanent, regular, casual? Does it kick into gear, say, after years of employment, 2 years of employment? How would you actually measure that, Sally?
Well, we used to actually have laws that did this after 6 months, and if it was a regular job with regular hours, after 6 months you got converted. In some industries it's after 12 months, but either way, whether a job's going to be there or not after that period of time, that's for sure.
Appreciate your time, Sally. Thanks for talking us through it.
No problem. See you, Ollie.
That's Sally McManus, Secretary of the ACTU, 133 882. Is that what we should now define as well for a casual? If it's 6 months, 12 months, somewhere a little in between, if it's ongoing, permanent, regular hours. On the line, Nicholas Hackenberg, Employment Relations Specialist at Employsure. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ollie. How are you going?
This is a win for employers, you probably argue, Nicholas.
I wouldn't go that far, but it certainly does benefit an employer in having certainty when they're engaging a casual, that they know exactly how much the casual is going to earn across the course of their employment contract. So I wouldn't characterise it as a win, but I'd certainly say it's beneficial for certainty purposes. Okay,
casuals, put the same question to Sally McManus. Casuals, generally speaking, paid a little bit more because they are not paid those leave entitlements like annual pay, sick pay and the like.
Yeah, and Sally touched on a great point. There's a historical reasoning for this. A casual employee will get slightly more money, known as a casual loading, and this will compensate them for things such as the absence of annual leave, the absence of being paid when you're not working on a public holiday, sick leave and the like. Now, this decision hasn't changed the way we understand this casual loading. It's really reinforced that where you're paid this casual loading, you will no longer be entitled to claim back permanent employee entitlements after you've already received it. So if you've received that 25% more, we can't at a later date redefine how the relationship looks and say, well, actually, maybe I should be entitled to annual leave instead.
Are there some labour hire companies, though, Nicholas, who are undercutting what that a casual position, including loading, should be?
Yeah, look, that's a really complex area. It's very industry specific as well. Sally touched on mining. Now, the industry of this court case was a mining industry and it was a labour hire company. There's no doubt that there's ongoing concerns for a lot of unions and employees in these industries and how labour hire firms operate. However, I'm not entirely certain that the definition of a casual increases or decreases the way these labour hire firms operate. Currently speaking, you're a casual whether you're employed by a labour hire firm or you're directly employed by maybe a big mining company. We still need to treat everybody like they are a casual rather than having two different standards.
Okay, if you are that casual, though, you're seeking a little bit more certainty. You want to be a permanent staff member, whether you're employed through a labour hire company or somewhere similar. Can you go and have that conversation? Can you say, hold on, you're giving me ongoing permanent regular hours, as Sally McManus just alluded to there, and can the employer or does the employer have to grant you your wish after a certain period of time?
Yeah, see, what this decision needs to be understood as in the context of recent changes to the Fair Work Act, and Sally touched on it, there has been changes to the Fair Work Act by the federal government, and these have really two big implications. Firstly, they've defined for the first time under the Fair Work Act what a casual actually is, rather than taking a common law historical understanding. And more importantly, they've included a statutory rights to casual conversion, or at least an offering of casual conversion, should the employee after 6 months or after 12 months, depending on the size of the business, reflect that more of a permanent employee, then the employer might be forced to actually offer them a permanent contract. So at this current point, the impacts of this case are reduced quite a bit because the federal government have placed that burden onto employers to make that casual conversion offering to casual employees.
It is interesting, Nicholas. I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Have a nice night.